Well, I'm Dave.
And I'm Sean.
This is Barstools and Bandtalk.
You said my line.
The complete everything to everybody show.
You said my line, but I have nothing in the cup, so it's all good.
Look, I call it sudden. So this is a cool interview. I'm going to let you bring him on because you did a lot of the research on this, gentleman, and this would be a great topic, I think.
It should be. Probably 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with a gentleman by the name of Tim Hallman, he's the MLA for Dartmouth, and I was talking to Tim about the lack of support for the arts, and there was supposed to be something coming out. We were waiting. It was announced today, and I actually called Jeremy to talk to him this afternoon just to kind of get his read on it. So we're going to talk about that. Jeremy Webb is the artistic director at Neptune Theatre. He's a writer. He's a comedian. He's a darn funny guy. Very well spoken. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, let's bring him on. We should see Jeremy up here. There.
Hello.
Mr. Webb, how are you, sir?
Good to see you both. I'm well, thank you.
Well, welcome to the show. We appreciate you coming on.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So we're going to jump right in. You and I chatted, Jeremy, this afternoon, and I wanted to kind of get your slant on what was announced. But before that, you've been doing kind of the media tour on what's been taking place in the industry. So why don't you just give us a little background on that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we, like everyone in most of the arts and entertainment industry, we shut down at Neptune back on that fateful March 13th. We were in the middle of one show. We had another show opening 2 days later. We had rehearsals for the biggest show of our year, Billy Elliot, about to begin the following Tuesday. So we were blown out of the water, but pleased to follow protocols and to get everyone safe. We basically have been shut down ever since, like every other theater in the world, pretty much, and are gradually trying to claw our way out of the hole that we find ourselves in. So, way back, the province had sort of mentioned, this is about 5-6 months ago now, mentioned that some additional support would be coming because they recognized that, for organizations like ours, we're a large venue in the downtown core of Halifax. Not only do we produce our own work, but we service a lot of other artist groups. We were hurting, like everyone in the industry, and they basically said that there would be help coming. So months went by. Of course, like everyone, we're really concerned that everyone is safe. Everyone was being looked after, that healthcare was important. Getting the kids back in school then was important. And we started to realize when it got to mid-August that we still hadn't heard anything back from the minister. So we made contact as a group. We all wrote, all of the theaters, I say all, most of the theaters and theater companies wrote to the minister and to our MLAs, and we still didn't hear anything back. And we were just saying, let us know what's happening. Are you going to help our industry? And it is an industry, right? As you know, it's not just a bunch of artsy-fartsy people making art. It's an industry, and we still didn't hear. So we then collectively wrote again, and then we went public with it a few weeks ago, towards the end of in October, and then basically just at the point where we realized we were being heard and the minister was acknowledging that yes, we're being heard, there was a bit of a shuffle and the minister was replaced. So the new minister coming in, Minister Lones Croft, obviously new to the job, first cabinet position, has been actually pretty good. In her first couple of weeks on the job, she's met with some arts organizations, been briefed. We were invited as theater companies, as organizations that specifically, do theater work. We were invited to come in and present the situation. She was very receptive, very interested. We met for a good 45 minutes to an hour. We'd prepared quite a detailed presentation, plus some take-home handouts. And here we are 7 days later, and the province has announced a sort of an initial aid package with, I think it's about 2.1 million coming to what will be a couple of hundred arts organizations. And we had asked for a very simple application process for this aid, because we didn't expect them just to hand out checks, you know, throwing money all over the place. We knew we would have to apply, and that made sense to us. And they've come back with that. They've come back with a very simple structure for applying for support. They've capped it at 75,000. There's really no doubt that that money is going to help a lot of arts organizations, and there's no doubt that, you know, not everyone's going to get 75,000. I mean, some people will get a couple of grand, maybe. You know, whatever they apply for, hopefully they will get. So,
Jeremy, let me ask you a question. Talk about Neptune specifically. How many people are employed there? Like, because it's not just, you know, obviously the performers. You have people who would be set directors and folks who are running, you know, the cash and the administration people. Like, how many people are employed by Neptune Theatre in Halifax?
You're absolutely right. And because it's contractual work, it can change. So, for example, when we shut down on March 13th, we had one show on stage which would have been employing about 20 people, a dozen actors plus stage crew. We had Billy Elliot about to go into rehearsal, so we had to basically pull out of contracts. I mean, we paid people for the 2 weeks that we're required to, but we had to let about 36 artists know, plus designers, musicians, crew. We have, you're right, front of house staff, ushers, all of whom rely on Neptune. So it goes into the hundreds. Certainly when Billy Elliot would have been running, it would have been hundreds. And we're down right now to a skeleton staff of about 11 or 12 people, just keeping the thing ticking over. As you can imagine, we've got a gigantic building in the middle of downtown Halifax. Right. We can't just chain it up, and nor do we want to. We want to be working towards that wonderful day when we can reopen our doors fully again.
That's right.
When you talk about where that building is, so you're a stone's throw from basically what's pretty much the hot spot in Halifax right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, you and I talked today about how, you know, they got the hockey going and whatnot, but people go downtown to Neptune, they're going to go out for a bite to eat, they're going to have a few beers, they're going to go to the show, they're going to stay out afterwards. So that's really what goes on there is a huge economic driver for downtown.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, when Neptune has, we have two stages. We have a 450-seater and a 180-seat, the Scotiabank stage, which is our studio space. Quite often, they will both have shows running at the same time, sometimes for weeks at a time. So imagine 600 people coming specifically to the downtown core to see those shows. They invariably either go, at the very least, they're paying for parking, but usually they're going for a drink, they're getting supper, they're hanging out a little.
Hotels, it could be, yeah.
Hotels, you know, all kinds of things. And that's just the sort of direct impact on the hospitality industry. They might go to another show afterwards. They might go to a bar and see a music event, depending on what time our show finishes. So we're really seeing an impact on that downtown core. I know of at least one restaurant right across the street from us, Bistro Le Coq. They basically have now switched to a different name. They've closed it down, the company that runs it, because they couldn't sustain their business because of COVID, and because a lot of their customers definitely were theater goers going for a bite, sure, a nice meal and a show. So there is an impact, the COVID impact, of course, but also us being shut down. We're not being that magnet right now. Now, yes, what's interesting, you know, as I leave the building sometimes late in the evening, is, you know, you walk through downtown Halifax and it's kind of like nothing's really changed
Yep.
too much. I mean, yeah, people are wearing masks. People are, for the most part, being safe. But sometimes it can be like a ghost town. And on other nights, you know, with the students back downtown, it's hopping down there.
Yeah, there's an energy that is. We went out the first night that everything opened up. I think it was June 5th.
Oh yeah.
And Dave and I were walking on Argyle Street, and obviously a brilliant thing. They shut the street down, which was great. But there was a buzz. There was, like, you could tell, like, people weren't nervous. All the bars were kind of abiding by what they needed to do. And my comment to Dave was, it's like, well, there's less people, but everybody seems to be happy and they're enjoying what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I remember that week, and I was certainly watching very closely, and had been, as restaurants were sort of opening back up again. I was watching from the windows and sort of watching people and seeing whether they were really following the rules, and sometimes they weren't. And since then, we've all cracked down a bit on it a bit more and become a little more aware of the fact that we're in this very privileged position here in the Atlantic bubble. And we don't want anyone screwing that up, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So,
absolutely.
you know, much as I would love to see us back to, and I'm going to use inverted commas in a cliche kind of way, normal.
The new normal.
The new normal. We don't really. I mean, the new normal has a lot, has a lot going for it. But also, do we really want it to be back the way it was before? A lot of people would say the normal wasn't great for them. And I think it's most important that we keep this province and the people in it safe.
That's right.
And if that comes at a price of reduced revenues and lack of business, so be it, so that we can actually come out the other end in a year or two's time. I don't think anyone in the arts industry wants to be back at work at the cost of human life or human comfort.
Exactly. I mean,
and all the way through the time when we were sort of you know, banging on doors and asking for support with our industry from government, we made sure that we said that, because we didn't, you know, we know that healthcare is actually more important. We know that our kids' safety is more important. We just want to make sure that when, and like, you know, musicians do as well, and people in the tourism industry and people in the event industry, they know that at some point they're going to be needed again, and we know that, and we just want to make sure we're here to tell those stories and to be part of.
You're bang on, Jeremy, and it's important that we recognize that too. When we started the show, Sean and I, we weren't blaming the government. I mean, the government didn't start COVID-19, you know, and these are unprecedented times. Nobody knew how to react. I think that, you know, what we're doing here in Canada, what we're doing specifically in Nova Scotia, is very good. I guess my question to you is, are you now, but we talk about this a lot too, the entertainment industry does usually suffer, and it's usually at the very tail end of that whole stimulus packaging, because not a whole lot of people see the direct value. So I guess here's my question to you. Are you happy with what you're hearing from the minister?
You know what, I can't fault the minister at this point. The fact that within, you know, a week or so of starting the job, she was sitting in a digital room with us and interacting, and the first thing she said was, I am all ears and I am all heart. Like, tell me everything you need to tell me. And that was impressive. The fact that she's come up with a very quick stimulus package, you know, I'm sure it was already being worked on, but she's pushed it through. I think that's very impressive too. Now, what we need to do, and what we'd also pitched to the minister, and I think we all have to bear in mind, is that this is not going away by March 31st, the end of the government's fiscal year. You know, we need to keep talking about how we're going to get through this. Every industry needs to talk about that. The other thing is, you know, you guys know, they always say, don't read the comments, right? Mm-hmm. I made the mistake today of reading some comments, and what I get from the comments on news articles is that there are some people in this world that have very clear views that artists, if you say the word art and culture to some people, they don't necessarily appreciate it or get it or understand what it means to society.
That's
And
right.
you know what? I'm not going to ever try and explain it to them. That's their choice. However, you know, again, we're not a group of artsy fartsy people asking for a handout. We're a multi-million-dollar money generating, um, Nova Scotia supporting industry that is actually putting money into the economy. I mean,
Yeah.
just the thousands of people that are out of work right now in my sector, in our sector,
Mhm.
tax dollars alone, right? I mean, there are so many people not earning earned revenue and not paying tax on it. Um, I don't know about in the music industry, but I think I know because I've heard some stories from musician friends, but I can't speak to it. But what the federal government did with CERB, with that, and then what they did with the wage subsidy, we certainly are still in existence as an organization because of the wage subsidy that they put into place, where they, you know, they help with a certain amount of the wages, and we pay the top up to make somebody's paycheck whole. Um,
Right.
those two schemes alone kept the wolf from so many people's doors, and they kept food and they kept financial stability during what was a very scary time. So what we've been asking the province to do, and actually the city too, HRM, is to join in that kind of activity and to put value into what I really think makes, I'm a landed immigrant, right? I came here 22 years ago, fell in love with the place and stayed and made it my home. I've never left. But this place is so rich with culture and art and storytelling and music and
That's right.
creativity.
That's right.
And when it's all gone, those people in the comments, if they don't have it, they won't care right now. But then when it's gone, there's going to come a point where they notice. They'll tell me that they won't. But
And that's a really good point, because every bit of the arts that people don't understand, and we talked today. I think people think because it looks like it's fun that we're doing it, it's
yeah,
it's a joke and whatever. It's a lot of
yeah,
work. You were if I correct me if I'm wrong, but you do comedy, or you've done comedy before, and
in the
you've done
past,
that
yeah,
type of thing.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of shoe leather that goes into getting good, right? And people don't understand that, but they don't understand that musicians spend money on strings and they spend money on food when they go to other places, and there's it's a huge reciprocal sort of industry that people just they don't equate. They just think it's fun, it's whatever, and they don't equate the fact that that money goes back into the local economy.
Yeah, it's a job. I mean, it really is a job. And, uh, somebody asked me the other day in a meeting, how much, how many millionaire actors are there in Nova Scotia? Well, I don't know that there are any. I certainly know what the average take home pay through acting is. And it's something ludicrously low, like $12,000 annually that somebody will earn from acting. Now, don't get me wrong. When you get an acting job and you're paid for one day on a film set, that's a good payday. That's good compared to someone that's on minimum wage. But the rest of the year, that person is on minimum wage or working three jobs to still be the artist that feeds their soul. And it's what they train to do. I went to theater school. I paid to go to school to learn how to do this, not this, not the artistic director job, not the banging on tables, but to actually learn how to act. And I went for 3 years, and here I am. Oh my goodness, nearly 20 years later, running a theater company and actually meeting with politicians and doing this. It's not what I trained to do, but it's part of my job. I'm so lucky to have this job, and it is a job. It's a career. So I get really upset when I see people undervaluing what musicians do. Like, how many times have you been out in a bar and been singing along with either a live musician or recorded music, but usually live here in Nova Scotia,
Yes.
and having the time of your life, you know, or you've gone to see a show, you've gone to see a stand-up comedian, and then if those people are the ones that are complaining about arts and culture, you know, or they go home and they flop on the couch and they watch Netflix, that's a whole bunch of artists making Netflix.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's, you know, exactly what we want to shine a spotlight with this show was that is like live entertainment isn't just a musician. It's a comedian. It's an actor. It's the film industry that's maybe making a slow comeback to Nova Scotia again. There's so many parts of this thing that without it, we're socially dead. You know, you're in non-existence. You know, and the folks couldn't go home and watch Netflix if it wasn't actors on it. There wasn't musicians writing the score. It wouldn't exist. And I don't think it's the big picture or not.
When an organization, when a company, a non-artistic organization looks to move to a city, you know, imagine if a big call center is coming to your town, or I don't know, a bank or whatever it is, I don't know. And what they do is they do research into the city to see what that city has to offer to its employees to entice them to come and work for them within HRM, say. And if you don't have a vibrant life, I mean, we're blessed here, right? Not only do we have some great art, some great culture, some great restaurants, great music, we also have the location. You know, we are so blessed. And as it turns out, that physical location is actually also keeping us from partially keeping us from a second wave of this pandemic. So we are triply blessed. But you know, that's what people are really looking for, is the way of life, and we don't necessarily mean monetary. We're talking about the pleasure that existence in a province or in a city or in a community will give you. And if you strip that away, any part of that, then you start to feel the loss, and then you know what? It's suddenly not so much fun to be here anymore, and you get the hell out.
You know, it's funny too, because in music, and I know, like, I play in a band, we play the Ale House, and you'll see actors and politicians, whatever. But we'll do a wedding, and we'll give somebody a price for a wedding, and they'll be like, "Well, geez, that's an awful lot of money." And it's kind of like, okay, well, you pay the hall, you pay the caterer, you pay the priest, you pay everybody else, and they come to you and you say, "Well, we get $250 for you to do your wedding." Makes no sense, right? You're not paying for that night. You're paying for the blood, sweat, and tears that it took to get to that night. Similar to your industry, I would think, because a lot of your folks, you probably have a hodgepodge of trained, not trained. They don't train like yourself. But they're working their butts off to get going, and people need to understand that it's just not about that particular performance that night. There's a whole pile of stuff that goes into it.
That's right. It's true. I hear exactly what you just said, because for years I would host, and I still do occasionally, host corporate events or be asked to MC an event or do some comedy or whatever it is. And quite often, as an indication that people don't always think it through, they would say, you know, well, we don't really have any money for the entertainment, but, you know, it'll be great exposure.
Yes.
And there'll be some egg sandwiches. There'll be leftover egg sandwiches, I'm sure.
Exactly. And you're like, yeah, well, I can die of exposure. But, you know, so my standard response became, and I would always do, don't get me wrong, I would often do a number of events. When it was at its height a few years ago, and I was doing 2 or 3 of these gigs a month, and it was good. It was good money. I worked my way to this point where I don't know whether you know the actor Bill Carr, but I would always get Bill Carr's handoffs. You know, if he couldn't do a gig, then call me and I'd be cheaper. So I love you, Bill. But they would say, you know, can you do it? There's no money, sorry, but it's exposure. And I'd say, okay, let me ask you a question. And I think you probably did the same thing. I'd say, is the venue donating the space? Is the chef donating the food? Is the catering company donating all the stuff? Is the AV company donating the sound equipment, the microphones, the lights, the staging? Whatever. And I'd go through this whole list. I said, if you can tell me that everyone else is donating to your cause, I will also come. And usually the the conversation stopped very soon after that.
Sure
And then I
did.
would say, look, and I would always say, I'm really respectful, and I know you have to ask. And I've been in the situation too, where I've asked people to do stuff for nearly nothing, but I make a note that at some point, you know, we owe them a big favor. So artists have quite often been a part of your world, and you don't know it, or you don't recognize it because they're always there. They've always been there. And the point right now is, because all these industries that we're talking about, arts, culture, tourism, the music industry, even restaurants to a certain degree have been, you know, really hit. That the sort of the fun side of life, because we were the first ones to go, and we're going to be the last ones back, and that may mean quite a way away. We're not there yet. They're suffering.
Sure they
You
do.
know, they're out of work. And so, you know, so today's news about, you know, some support is welcome, because it adds to the list of recognition that I think some of these people need.
That's so awesome, Jeremy. Listen, we want to be respectful of your time too, my friend, and we sure appreciate you coming on the show.
I've
I
got a
guess
glass of wine. I'm fine.
perfect. Well, I still got some rye. I'm okay too. Is
Yes.
there anything? And again, we can't blame the government. We can't. But is there anything that you're asking more, or actually, what can our viewers do maybe to show some support towards what your cause is right now? Anything we can kind of shine a light on for Neptune Theatre?
Sure. Well, thank you. I think certainly from a sort of an activism point of view, letting your MLA know that not just theater, but all arts and entertainment and culture is important to you, and that you recognize it as being important to Nova Scotia. And they all know, because we've written to them all, and a lot of them have responded. And you know, they know what we're fighting for right now. They know what the musicians are fighting for. But they are being pulled, rightly so, in multiple directions. We're just saying, don't forget this segment of our society. In a more specific way, what Neptune Theatre is doing gradually, we've done a couple of things that I'll mention. One is we did that thing, a word I never thought I'd find myself saying so much, and that's the word pivot. We've all heard pivot so much. You know, they're like, oh, you know, well, you can just change what you do, learn a new skill. And you're like, well, no, we trained in this skill. It'd be like saying to a lobster fisherman, you know, I think the lobster industry is damaged. Why don't you go and fish for shrimp or salmon instead? Go do salmon. And the lobster fisherman might be like, well, okay, but salmon, I guess I'll need some new devices to catch these things. Anyway, so you know what I mean? It's not just a case of pivoting that much. What we've done is we have actually created something we call Neptune at Home, which is a digital platform, which is very reasonably priced, and it's a bit like Netflix actually. And we've put some shows on there. We filmed a bunch of stuff in August, music shows, people like Keontae Beals, Christina Martin, T. Thomas, and a whole bunch of people doing concerts, wonderful concerts. And we've filmed a few shows. There's a talk show, there's a cooking show, there's all kinds of entertainment. And we're adding plays to that all the time, so that you can sort of it's basically a way of keeping in touch with people. The other thing that we're doing, which we just actually announced, I think only within the last 48 hours, my goodness, today's events kind of took over, is we've decided that we are actually going to open the theater and do a small production with just one actor. It's a show we do every year. It's a one-man version of Christmas Carol.
Nice.
It's always very popular, and it's usually on our second stage. But because of physical distancing, we'd only be able to get 50 people in the audience in there. So we're going to move Scrooge onto the main stage. We put tickets on sale. And to be honest, it was kind of a scary night, because we announced it on CTV that we were doing Christmas Carol, and it was going to be run for 5 weeks, physically distanced, totally safe, following all the protocols. Overnight, ticket sales went crazy.
Nice.
And it was so moving. And what it meant to us is that there are people out there that if they see the value in coming to see a piece of entertainment, they're ready to come back.
That's right.
We still feel somewhat safe here, right?
That's awesome, Jeremy. Yeah,
So,
that's
and
great.
we'll follow all the protocols, and if that changes, we'll have to adjust accordingly and pivot again. But yeah, so we're doing a few things. So if people want to get some live theater, we have some in a very reduced way this Christmas, and then we have Neptune at home. So we're giving it a go. We're trying.
Oh, and I mean, I think that's fantastic because, reinventing yourself. And I think one of the things that's coming out of this is, I know a lot of musicians, the live stream, I don't think you're going to see that go away. I think if you're off on a Friday night, you're going to live stream on the internet and try to sell tickets. And a couple friends of ours are having a really good go with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned something really interesting that I want to kind of get you to touch on a little bit. You said we were the first to go and we're kind of the last to come back.
Yeah.
And you're hitting me in a good spot, because the part for me that I've kind of been annoyed with this the whole time is that the sense of urgency for this sector with government, they're not missing paychecks. We're missing paychecks, so they're not getting it.
Right.
And it's good that this minister comes in. She's new. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
I know she has an arts background. That's huge. But just touch on that a little bit, like how you think that that's going to pan out, because we're starting to see it a little bit, baby steps, but I'm hoping that it comes back a little bit quicker than what people think it will.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of studies done through the first few months of the pandemic, with lots of studies about when an audience is going to come back, and when are they ready. And the numbers were very low. Under 25% of people said that they would come back until there was a fully functioning, injection of something to go in your arm and to protect you. And I've just lost the word. Can you tell? Vaccine. Thank you. See, that's I should have that. We should all have that tattooed somewhere on our body right now, because that's.
Did you see me pivot there?
Yeah. But so people want a vaccine, because our industry is based on hundreds of people coming together and sitting in a room, whether it be a bar watching a musician, or a music venue watching a musician, or a theater watching a play. It's hundreds of people sitting in close proximity. So that's quite scary. I mean, I'm scared to do that. I've been to a few shows recently, and I feel safe because I'm in Nova Scotia. If the bubble wasn't quite as strong, touch wood, I would feel nervous. So when I say, we were the first ones to go down, we had to react immediately, because we had the gatherings of people.
Right.
I had hundreds of people in my theater every night, right up to March 13th. And we were scheduled to have even more coming to Billy Elliot. And we have to wait for everybody to be ready and safe to come back again. So that's what I mean. And that's why we'll be the last. And that's what we'll be fighting for.
So long as people keep the fight alive, because that's, you nailed something a little earlier, because it's like, I'm so glad to hear that you had that Christmas show, like selling out night after night. That's so important, because people see the value of it. And I guess that's kind of what we're all trying to do, is just trying to get people to remember it. Like, so when you can, when you feel safe, when you feel comfortable, get out there and support it again. Don't forget about it, because without this industry, the entertainment and arts industry, again, we might as well just shrivel up and die. Or, it's part of who we are as a culture. We need to have that exposure.
Yeah, and how do we keep it? How do we keep the faith? How do we keep it alive? I sound like a George Michael song, which isn't a bad thing, let me tell you. I think it is by reminding people and by staying in contact. It is by watching live streams of musicians. I know that when we gathered together in August to film these shows and these concerts, I was one of about 7 people in a room watching a musician or a band or whatever do a concert just for us and for the cameras. But I was close to live performance, and it made the hair stand up on the back of my hand, because I'd forgotten what it was like when we open Christmas Carol on the 24th of November, and that actor walks out on stage for the first time, he starts the play sitting down. When he takes that seat and the lights come up, he's going to see something very unique in the world. He's going to see about 100 people, which is a little weird because it'll be 350 less than are normally in that room, so it'll feel empty, but at the same time it'll feel so full because he's the first one.
Right on.
He's like an explorer. I have to get him some kind of like pith helmet or I don't know, Indiana Jones outfit.
So our folks that tune into the show, where are they going to go to support Neptune? How do they find you? What do you need them to do?
Sure. Well, the most central place is, of course, our website, neptunetheatre.com. That has links to everything that we've got going on, every initiative that we're doing during these insane times. There are ways there to get the entertainment. There are ways there to book tickets for shows. There are ways just to support Neptune, should you feel so inclined. NeptuneAtHome.com is the streaming service. But like I say, our main website will take you there too. So it's pretty much the place to go.
Fantastic. Well, we want to thank you for doing this. I know we had a misfire. That was on us. That wasn't on you.
Oh, yes. No problem. Thank you.
But glad to have you on. What we'd like to do, we'd like to follow up with you, see how things are going.
Thank you.
See, and by all means, shoot us an email, a note, anything we can do to help. Glad to do so.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that.
But we're so excited. This is kind of the bridging the gap to what Sean and I have been talking about for a long time. This has never been just about music. It's been about arts and entertainment. And now again, tagging the Neptune Theatre to this program means the world to Sean and I too, because it's all one community. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. And we see ourselves, we've actually in the last couple of years, we've been programming more what I call pure music concerts. Rock concerts and fun things, and I want to see more of it happening. Anyway, as a venue, we're very well equipped, and it's a cool place to play. So yeah, there'll be more music there when we get back to it. Anyway, so it is a good crossover. So.
Well, Jeremy Webb, thank you so much. We had a great little chat here, and keep us posted, my friend.
Will do.
Peace out, brother.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
You take care too.